Do you ever go into the brand new multiplayer of your absolutely favorite game of all time's DLC and immediately accidentally invade near far? Yeah, me neither. But one thing that was made apparent by this invasion, that some people are still living in the past. Well, the goal of this video and this channel is to help you see into the future. Some of the things in this DLC are just far too strong. That's immediately been made apparent. Just picking up a random weapon and trying it at an invasion can result in you finding one of the most broken things in the game that needs to be immediately patched. I invaded on my stream for about 3 hours yesterday with a Dexterity Build. I noticed that I was walking around the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, a lot of the weapons that I would pick up and a lot of the things that I had on me had dexterity requirements and decent, if not excellent, dexterity scaling, including great Katanas, Milady, 2 of the Perfume bottles, the reverse curve swords, and many others. And this build has me dancing like do 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 da na 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 na. These Rana dancing blades are really bad though. They don't give you hyper armor, and the motion values on the Ash of War deal almost no damage. So let's throw that one in the trash bin. I tried out the Beast Claws for a while. Once again, the motion values didn't seem great on my particular build, but they could be fun, something to experiment later. Let's talk about one of the large elephants in the room, the reverse curve swords. You have running attacks with no recovery. You have a recovery canceling iframe reaction punishing weapon with extremely fast frame data. Additionally, if you try out the Cirque, you'll realize that you can have all of these qualities of a weapon that is extremely mobile, fast, and deadly with an additional ranged attack. Seems extremely fair. That's right, we have these new throwing weapons, so when you add on having a ranged attack to an extremely overpowered weapon, it actually adds a lot of broken potential to it. These Smithscript weapons are a little funny though. I do think that it highly depends on latency, how they function. The range seems unpredictable. Sometimes it looks like they should hit and they don't, and I'll have to experiment with these a lot more to get a real impression of how they function. But let me tell you one thing, the Cirque has almost no downsides. You can stand away and spam your ranged attack for no FP, or you can pressure and aggress in a 1v1, put your opponent on the back foot like few other weapons in the game. These things are nasty, and I promise you, you don't want to miss out on this before you get patched. We of course also found these extra long Katars. These things seem extremely busted. They'll likely enable you to punish light rollers, and in spite of the recent nerf to this weapon moveset, this might be the reason it was nerfed in the first place, because they have ridiculous range, and so maybe they thought that those being able to combo would be just a little bit too good. I tried the Milady out. I think that this thing came in as one of the most massively overrated things that people were looking forward to. The recovery time on almost all of the moves is pretty lengthy, and although it does have a decent chase down R1 poke, the rest of the moveset can lock you into these animations and is very punishable. One thing I will say about the weapon though, it has excellent forward momentum and range on its attacks. So there might be something there if people learn how to use the mix-up properly. It might involve some unlocked fighting, it'll involve the crouch attacks and the running R1. But as a meta weapon, as a top tier meta weapon, I don't really see it. In fact, sometimes the running R1 is so bad, you just have to swap to the broken twin axes to actually kill your opponent. The dry leaf arts seem very strong. I'm not sure about the overall damage of some of the attacks, but the running and jumping R2 seem very good, and the running R2 is excellent for chase down. I also like the Ash of War that it came pre-cooked with. Palm Blast is pretty strong, it has a little bit of range, and it does give you some hyper armor while you're charging it, so sometimes if people try to trade with it, they might get majorly punished. Me and this guy fought for a few minutes, and he was just chugging and chugging and chugging, and it gave me a good chance to experiment with the weapon. And as you can see here, it has quite excellent roll catching, and the Ash of War has major damage. So I think that these have a lot of potential 1v1s. I'm not so sure about against a group of people. I think the Ash of War leaves you locked into the animation too much, and I'm not sure that you'll be able to crowd control effectively with those. We of course also use the Great Katana in a bunch of invasions. Great Katana, best weapon in the game. I'm still figuring the moveset out to this one. There's a ton of mix-ups available on this weapon, and it has amazing pokes. Both the running R1 and the crouching and rolling R1 are a poke, and so because it's a very long weapon, you can use that to pressure people extremely effectively. The overhead stance Ash of War seems to be decent, at least the R1 mode of it. I haven't tried this out with the talisman that buffs the stances, but I imagine that you could get some decent damage out of this if you combine like Alexander's Jar Shard with that new talisman. These guys were in a bad spot. They should not have tried to fight me. They probably should have just kept going into the level, but hey, what can you do? Sometimes when bad red man come, you just freeze. Great Katana is a fantastic addition to our arsenal as invaders. It has a great running poke, a great crouch poke, and excellent mix-up potential. Whether it'll be able to compete with newly rising and formerly top-tier meta weapons remains to be seen, but I do believe that this is one of the strongest additions to the game on the patch and has a lot of variety of gameplay and ways to use it that will be very helpful to your average invader, and it should be a part of every invader's kit. In a lot of these clips, I was using the Dragon Slaying Great Katana. It looks super sweet, and the charged version of the Ash of War is pretty decent for range punish. But all around, I do believe that the Great Katana that allows you to change the Ash of War will end up being the superior choice in invasions. Ashes of War like Piercing Fang, Sword Dance, Spitting Slash, all will perform very well on this weapon because of the length and the relatively decent damage. I wanted to talk a little bit about invasions in general in the DLC. This is one of the most fun aspects of this new version of the game, all of the different varieties of maps and the new places to PvP, and even if there aren't any explicitly PvP headlighted changes, this is one of the most fun things we can look forward to in the game. But I did want to add that this area is pretty rough. Castle of Ensis, where are they? Where the hell are they? Who knows? The spawn points are just as brutal as its inspiration, Carrier Manor, so I might stay away from invading nearby in this castle for a while if you don't like having to teleport around and getting fog wall. One thing I haven't found readily available yet in the DLC, but this may change very soon, I'm only about halfway through it, is an area of effect Ash of War that gives you on-demand hyper armor and is effective against groups of 2 or 3 that are rushing you down. And what can I say? You can't teach an old dog new tricks, and in some of these invasions, I did resort to base game Ash of War. This is one thing we'll have to experiment with more, and while it's not quite properly a get off me tool, the Death Knight's twin axes are majorly broken in invasions. This is a PvP tool that allows you to fly across ridiculous amounts of space while attacking and has a follow-up that can blend your opponent. It doesn't have insane damage, but as a finishing tool, I found few like it in the game, and other PvP specialists are highlighting just how busted this is. You can change direction on a dime, you can chase down phantoms that are low health, and this is something that is broken, super helpful in invasions, and also will probably be patched. So essentially they just nerfed one Thunder Axe Ash of War option and gave us a new one. In spite of my search for instantaneous hyper armor Ash of War to succeed against groups, I did find one thing to be very effective at burning down groups of players. And this, my friends, is the way that you're going to improve the stench of all those gankers in the Shadow Realm. This, of course, is the perfume bottles, specifically the Rolling Sparks Ash of War. Now, I don't quite understand the frame data on perfume bottles. Sometimes the explosions look pretty latent, and sometimes the Ash of War effect doesn't even really appear on your screen. But I can say this, it does huge damage. The Ash of War puts an explosion on a fuse and on a DEX build, deals insane DPS if your opponents stand inside of it. It's tough to roll, it's weird on latency, and it's one of the best things that I've ever found in Elden Ring for spamming into a room or a hallway. You guys need some new shit! Try Perfumes! It smells good! It's very difficult for people to roll away from it. And because of its unpredictable and explosive nature, you'll be catching people off guard constantly with these perfume bottles. One of the absolute best things about these weapons is that both the Fire Spark perfume bottle and the Lightning perfume bottle scale with dexterity. On a dex build, you have a very viable power stance moveset. The power stance moveset does seem to be a little bit better and more effective. If there's a group in your face and you can get a few of these Ash of Wars out into the space in front of you, you may have a couple of dead phantoms on your hand. The Shadow of the Erdtree DLC is beautiful. It's like entering a completely new era of gameplay, with all new things to experiment with, a new metagame, and new potential for gamers of all sorts to improve, update, and radically change their playstyles. It's a massive playground for PvP. When you find something that you love, you truly have to live in the moment. So if you enjoy the PvP of Elden Ring, enjoy the new tools, the new experimentation, and all the incredible fun you'll get up to. And remember, if something is broken in the hands of a ganker, it may very well be broken in the hands of an invader. One of the best things about this time is that there's not a clear picture of what will be best. That is the fun and beauty of it. We're all still playing through the DLC, we're finding new things, the new interactions, the new matchups, the new potential is all out there waiting to be discovered. So get out there, Tarnished, and figure something out. GG's! That's how we win the invasion for the Cull.